Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Hudson-Passy from the SLIG Committee. And with me today, I've got the lovely Gena Philibert-Ortega who is here.
Hello.
She is going to talk to us about her SLIG course. It's Advanced Techniques, Material Culture Research Techniques for Genealogy. I wanted to make sure I said that correctly.
Yes.
Can you give us a brief overview of this course? That's an intriguing title.
Well, it's all about material culture. And so that's in some ways new to genealogists, but it really isn't.
Yes.
So if you think about kind of the history of genealogy, historically we're looking at tracing families, connecting lineages, that kind of thing. But probably in the last 5+ years, we've been very concerned about, hey, let's tell people stories because that's what interests everyone, right?
Yes.
Your kids or your grandkids, they don't care about the names, dates, and places.
Nope.
So then we look at social history and how social history can help. But material culture is kind of the next step. And that is just really quickly defined as stuff. It's the stuff that people leave behind, they create all of that. So if you think about your own family, that's heirlooms maybe that you inherited, or maybe you're at an antique store and you go, oh my gosh, my grandma had this tea kettle, I must have it. So it's what we're going to do is we are looking at how do we research that stuff and tell stories. So what we'll do is we'll start out the class the first day talking about the history of genealogy, social history, and how to do historical research, because we're going beyond just genealogy. We're really doing historical research. And then the second day, we're going to talk about what is material culture and how do you research material culture. And then Laura Pratel, who works for the Indiana State Historical Society and their museum, she's going to talk about museums and researching museums and, what happens when we research that stuff. And then what we'll do is we'll go into stuff, basically. We're going to go inside the home and we're going to look at the kitchen. We're going to look at Sears catalogs and what they can help us with. We're going to look at photographs. So we're going to do all of that. And in fact, one of my things I'm really excited for is Tammy Heps is going to talk about a tablecloth she researched, as a signature tablecloth. And a lot of people are familiar with signature quilts, which is something I do.
Yeah.
Well, she had a tablecloth and she did some marvelous research. So she's going to talk about that. And then we go into a day where we're looking outside of the house. So we're looking at doing house history. And Mary Pierre Louis is going to help us with that for 2 lessons. It's going to be wonderful. And then we're going to look at death and the material culture of death and what happens, not necessarily when we die, but what material items have to do with death and what stories can they tell us. And then the last day, we'll talk more about resources and where to find information and give some kind of short case studies. And then the students who want to will tell us about something in their family history, some item. So we're going to start off with kind of broad history and how to research beyond familiar sources. Then we're going to kind of bring it down to, specific items and show how to do it. And then we'll actually do it. So it's going to be really exciting. No one else is doing something like this.
Sounds fun.
It's not just heirlooms. I think that's important. This isn't really a course about here's your heirloom and how to preserve it. So obviously that does play a part. This is really about how do you tell stories, but also use items to tell that story and to research it.
I love that. My mom calls me the keeper of all things. I mean, I've got so much stuff. I've got, furniture from great grandparents that I don't even know if it was theirs, or they got it from their grandparents. So what a fun class.
Yeah, and we're going to use sources that we normally don't use, like the Sears catalog, for example, and other catalogs. We're gonna look at sources that have to do with professional organizations. We're going to look at period pieces. So this is really, if you love research, this is the course for you.
This sounds great. And it's different. Like you said, nobody's really doing anything like this. This is different. It's just kind of a different pathway to find out more about your family stories. Do the students need to, are there any prerequisites? Should they come prepared with anything?
Not really. I mean, it would be helpful if you had a basic foundational knowledge of genealogy, because we're going to expand on that. So if you're kind of new to genealogy and research it might be a little bit too difficult, but you still probably could do it. But having that basic foundational knowledge is going to help you, because we're going to build upon that. And we're going to go and look at repositories outside of the normal, everyday ones that we use as genealogists.
Oh, this sounds fabulous. What an interesting class. Thank you for putting this together. This is great. So you told me all of the other instructors, we didn't miss anybody. It sounds like a great lineup of people.
Yeah,
lineup.
Just in case I forgot someone, there's Mary Pierre Louis, who many people are familiar with. She's a fabulous house historian. She's a legacy. We have Lee Eltroth, which will be new to many people, but I love Lee because she does all kinds of interesting research on women photographers. She does a lot of research with daguerreotypes. And then Lauren Pratel, who, like I said, works for Indiana State Historical Society. And then Tammy Heps, which a lot of people are familiar with Tammy as well. In fact, you might be familiar with some research she did on butter. So, which is some of my favorite research, but she is, she goes in and she really does some nice work when she kind of just focuses in on a place or an item. So it's good for all of us to learn more about and how to kind of not only better our research game, but also do research that other people want to hear about.
Sure. And that's, that is the point, that other people would want to hear about.
It is.
It adds so much to your ancestors' stories.
Well, it does. I mean, if you went to the movies and they just had, a text rolling by, you'd be bored and you'd leave, right?
Exactly.
But it's the photos and the stuff and the stories that brings that to life. And that's exactly what we're going to arm you with. We're going to help you do better research that's a little different. And then you can take that and start telling those stories and interest the non-genealogists in your family. And also, I think, one of the problems, I know you've probably heard this, where people say, oh, everything's going to end up at Goodwill, or no one wants my grandma's china. Yeah. Well, if it's put away, boxed up, no, nobody wants it. They don't want something they have to store. But if you bring it out, if you tell those stories, if you get people interested, it's more likely to be passed down. So I think that's a component to this as well.
I love that. This sounds absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me. You've got me really interested in this class.
Good.
I'm sure anybody else that's watching this, because it's something so different and just another skill to build and another way to look at doing research and finding information about your family. So Gena, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and everybody, check those registration dates and get yourself into this class. It sounds fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.